You guys are great. So hey, my name's Aneil Kersey. I'm the Vice President of Concraft. I've been with Concraft now going on 20 years. I'm responsible for coordinating condo association insurance claims. Lots of fun, right? How many guys you never want to call? I currently work with just over 400. That's a biscuit up there, but it's 400 property managers across the state of Michigan. I'm the board president of Community Association Institute, which is a trade organization for property managers and board members. I'm a graduate from Grand Valley State University. Those of you who love football, I played college football there as a running back, and Coach Brian Kelly was my head coach. You guys know who that is? He now coaches LSU, right? So our company, Concraft, is a 24/7 emergency response contractor. We specialize in fire damage, water damage, mold damage. Basically, anytime the association has an insurance claim, we're the ones you should call. Our team consists of estimators, project managers, carpenters, painters, drywallers, water technicians, mold remediation technicians, and 70% of our business is condo associations. So what are we doing here today? So today we're going to do basically a case study of a recent condo fire that happened in Monroe. We're going to talk about all the steps associated with it, how Concraft helps the association, and really how you guys, as co-owners and boards, should prepare yourself in the event that there's a fire. And while you're listening to me talk today, you really should think about what would you do if you lost a building in a fire? What would you do? So as I ask you that question and talk about this presentation, I want you guys to think about that. So I got a call from a self-managed board president. She called her insurance agent, and her insurance agent referred her to Concraft. They had an electrical fire. As you can see, it was a apartment-style building. Common areas, common hallways, they had laundry rooms. We had 11 units damaged by fire. The fire went up the sidewalk, traveled across the roof, burned the roof up. Every unit, that picture to the right is the common area, but every unit looked just like that. So, we're going to get into the steps now. I know this is so much fun for you guys. But we're going to get into the steps of what happens when there's a fire like this. So the first thing is, obviously the fire department's there, they're putting out the fire, there's chaos. Before the fire department can leave, they need the building secured. Okay? They need it boarded up, they need it tarped. And what I want to warn you guys about, because I don't like it, the fire departments typically try to call their own vendors in. So if you're prepared, that's the theme of this conference, you as a board should be the ones calling your own contractor out. Most of the time, if you have a management company, you're calling your management company, you're trusting your management company would call out a contractor. My point is, don't rely on the fire department to bring in their own contractors. Because what happened is this fire, this is a self-managed association. The contractor started soliciting all the co-owners for the work. And very chaotic. So, anyways, not only does the building have to be secured, sometimes there has to be locks and hasps added to the door so no one can go in and out, because it's still an active investigation. There also should be a board meeting scheduled immediately. In this case, I was called, and when I was called by the board, the self-managed board, they didn't know who I was. So I had at that point, I was not committed to handle the job. All I was I got called, and I went out, and I met them. And we scheduled a board meeting. So, day 2, when I met with the board, the first thing that we did was we looked at the bylaws. Because what do bylaws determine? You know? Who's responsible? And it's not just, it's clarity. We need to have clarity on what the association is responsible for versus what the co-owners are responsible for. And when I showed you that picture earlier, how many units were affected? 11 units were affected, which means we have 12 different insurance adjusters that we have to deal with. The association insurance adjuster and the 11 co-owners adjusters. And they all have to have clarity on what they're responsible to pay. Does that make sense? So again, at this meeting, with this case study, I still didn't have commitment yet from the board. So I didn't know if I was handling it yet. So I gave them some advice. We have to get a roster going. We got to know who the co-owners are. We got to know if they're insured. We got to know how much insurance they have. We got to know what their claim number is. We got to know who their adjuster is. That was all information that I advised them that we needed if we were indeed going to be hired. Again, at this point, we weren't sure if we were going to be hired. I advised the board that you have to assign a point of contact. That point of contact is me. So I handle all the associations. Say it again? Yes, I'm the quarterback. I handle all the communication with the adjusters, all the communication with the co-owners, all the communications with the investigators. Here's a copy of the actual bylaws, and I want to read the sections to you that are relevant. Sorry, I have to walk up here. So under the insurance section, it says each co-owner may obtain insurance coverage at his or her own expense upon the building items within his or her condominium which were furnished with a unit by the developer. However, they'll be considered excess insurance since the association's property insurance will be primary coverage as described below. Now, I'm not going to read any more, but basically what the bylaw says in this case is that the association's insurance is going to cover everything to a standard builder's grade. So what does that mean? Does anybody know? Hold on, I gotta run over here. Say the price is right. No, what it means is the association's insurance is going to rebuild the units to their original builder standard grade condition. So that means they're going to cover all the floor coverings, all the countertops, all the paint, all the cabinets, everything. However, every single unit in this particular condo was upgraded. So who's responsible for the upgrade cost? Owners. What else is the owner responsible for?
When they were done, no, there was nothing to argue with. We all got assessed for $5,000.
Well, we'll talk about that later. So the co-owners are responsible for the betterments and improvements, their personal property, and additional living expense. And we'll talk about that later. So we'll skip that one. The board of directors eventually, after meeting with them several times, decide, hey, Aneil, you're our guy. We really like Concraft. We really like what you have to offer. We're going to sign our contract with you. By signing our contract, it's allowed me then to take the next step, which is this. We had to get a list of all the co-owners, their names, their phone numbers, their email addresses, their insurance carrier, their adjuster, their claim number, their adjuster's phone number, their adjuster's email, their coverages. Guys, you guys are all co-owners, right? Okay. Do you know how long this job's going to take to get done? COVID, right? This job prior to COVID would take a year. Now it's going to take almost 2 years. Now, with that in mind, there's some people that have $12,000 in coverage for additional living expense. That's going to last 3 months. So when we talk about preparedness, go home, look at your H06 insurance policy, okay? Make sure you're also looking at your bylaws so that you know what you are supposed to insure. In most cases, you're responsible for your betterments and improvements, your personal property, so if I turn the condo upside down, everything that falls out of it, but more importantly, your additional living expense. There's people that have nowhere to live because they didn't have the right additional living expense. So your additional living expense is 40% of your personal property coverage. So let's say you have $50,000 in personal property. What's 40% of that? $9,000? Is that right? So just be aware of your coverages. Very, very important. This whole conference is about preparation, right? You can go home and look at your policy pretty quickly. Make sure you have enough coverage. All right. I'm going to bore you some more. So after a fire loss, every insurance company, every single one is going to do what's called a cause and origin investigation. We want to know, why did the fire happen? Who caused it? Do we have somebody or entity that we could subrogate against? So have you ever seen a building like boarded up for like 4 days, 5 days, 6 days after a fire? It's because the insurance company is performing what we call a cause and origin investigation. I'm going to explain it so you understand it. We had a condo fire at a place called Country Place in Northville. It was $1 million condo fire. It affected 8 units. The association insurance carrier was Farm Bureau. They engaged a private investigator to investigate the fire. Through the investigation process, it was determined that a Samsung microwave caused the fire. There was an electrical component in the fire. So Farm Bureau paid the association $1 million to rebuild it, the Concraft, but then subrogated and sued Samsung behind closed doors to recover the funds. It's actually a good thing for the association because now they don't have a loss for their loss runs and their premiums stay down. But this is the reason why insurance companies perform cause and origin investigation. And in this particular example, it's not just the association that investigates, it's any insurance company that's paying out the claim. So we had 12, right? 11 co-owners and the association. And if they found subrogation, remember that timeline I told you of 2 years? Push it back to 2.5 years. Because we can't start anything until that investigation is done. So pay attention to your H06 policy. Very, very important. Okay. Once the cause and origin investigation is completed, then my estimators meet the association adjusters and the owner's adjusters on site. They walk the loss. They talk about the bylaws. They get the agreement on the scope of work. We write the estimate. We submit our estimate on behalf of the association and on behalf of the owners, and we get approval. That approval process can take 20 days, 30 days, 40 days. Only thing that we can control as a restoration contractor is how quickly we get our estimate turned in. Then it's following up with the adjuster to get it approved. Make sense? All right. I think Lily talked about assessments back there, so we're going to talk about that real quick. So some of the challenges we had with this particular loss. the building, you can see that was an old building, it was an apartment converted to a condo at some point. It was built in 1968. They did not have asbestos coverage. Guess what the building had? We have to get it tested, it had asbestos. So, what do? So I met with the board president, or the board actually, I made my recommendation, and my recommendation was, hey, we got an estimate for $160,000 to do the abatement. So you're gonna need to go to your attorney, and probably have your attorney write a letter to the co-owners, and you're gonna need to do what? Assess. So what was cool, I want to say it wasn't cool, what was a relief for the co-owners, there was 44 co-owners. They were all able to turn in insurance claims under their HO6 policy, and their HO6 policy covered the assessment cost. So they got lucky there. The other thing that was, so when you're running 12 different estimates, and you're dealing with 12 different insurance companies, what we get to find out and notice is which insurance companies are good. Okay? And the ones that are good are the ones that call you back, approve things, and get payment out. Now, that was a big challenge for us because some of them were really good, and some of them were really bad. So when we talk about getting approvals from the HO6 carriers timely, there were some that just took too damn long, excuse my language. So it drags the job out. Law and ordinance coverage. So on the association's policy, are you guys all on the board? No? Okay. Some of you guys are okay. So if you're on the board, one of the questions I would be asking my insurance agent is how much law and ordinance coverage do we have? So law and ordinance coverage is like, again, that building was built in 1968. We had to pull a building permit to rebuild it. Well, the building department's going to come in there and say, hey, you need to bring this, and this, and this, and this up to today's building code. And that is a separate coverage. We had a fire where 18 units burned down, and they had $25,000 of law and ordinance coverage, but they needed $250,000. So be aware of your law and ordinance coverage. Make sure you have enough in your association policies. They made us put sprinklers in. We're putting sprinklers in this building. You guys know what I mean by sprinklers? The fire suppression systems? Very costly. We can move on. Here's the actual time frame on this particular loss. What happened? Let me go back. So the date of loss was February 13th. The date of the cause and origin investigation was February 17th. The date of the estimate inspection. So you can see the February 17th to March 7th, there was some time for that investigation. Again, there was 12 investigators, right? We inspected the job on March 7th. We got the estimate submitted on March 21st. And look at that, 9 days to approve a $2.4 million job. I can't tell you who the insurance company is, but that's pretty darn good. Because then I would be, favoritism for an insurance company. You can talk to me privately, I can tell you. And then we started the job on April 7th. So it got approved on March 30th, and we started April 7th. So these are some internal documents, very important board of directors that have management companies that when you have a $2.4 million settlement, there should be a contract in place with whoever's doing the job with performance draws. You got $2.4 million in the bank. We're not going to ask you for $2.4 million. We're going to have a contract in place, and you guys are, as a board, going to pay us based on draws as we complete that project. So make sure whoever you're using on insurance might give a contract. Okay. Are we having fun? Is this informative? I'm gonna keep going, I'll be done, I gotta go to football practice, remember that, so. It's 4:12, football practice starts at 5. Okay, so now we're in the project manager role, so now we have the estimates written, they're all approved, we have contracts signed. Now what do? We gotta assign a project manager to run the job, so what's the project manager's role? He's gonna meet with all the co-owners, he's gonna go over the scope of work for their unit, he's gonna go over all the selections needed for their unit, so selections are cabinets, countertops, floor coverings, light fixtures, everything that goes back in that unit, the co-owner has to select on our selection sheet. Typically, the co-owners will come to our showroom, we have a beautiful showroom, but they don't have to. Also, while we're working on the selections process, the co-owners are working diligently with their insurance companies on their personal property. So when you guys hopefully never experience a fire, but if you do, you're gonna have personal property again, with stuff that is either salvageable or non-salvageable. And that's what you need to work with your insurance company on. And I'm not gonna get into all that, but that's another conversation. But anyway, the project manager's job is to run the job from A to Z, deal with all the co-owners, pull the building permits, and basically get the job done. We keep the property manager updated once a week via email on all of our jobs, and then we rely on the property manager to keep the board updated. If that makes sense. In this particular case study, this is a self-managed board, so we're dealing directly with the board. I'll skip that one. All right, some other items. We talked about law and ordinance coverage, landscape coverage. So again, on your policy for the association, there's landscape coverage. We have to bring in heavy equipment, right, to lay trusses, for example. So we're going to damage landscape. Most policies say something like you have $25,000 in landscape coverage. Well, when I first saw that, I'm like, cool. They got enough coverage. But then I didn't realize it was like, you got to pull the onion back a little bit on the coverage, because it's like, you got $25,000 coverage, but you only have $5,000 for trees. You only have $2,000 for shrubs. So if you have, $10,000 of shrub damage, you only get $2,000. So you got to be aware of your landscape coverage. Supplements. I get this question all the time. What if you guys find something else that wasn't in the original estimate during construction? Who covers it? It's real simple. It's called a supplement. We call the association's adjuster or the owner's adjuster and say, hey, this wasn't in the original bid. You need to come back out here and look at this because we got to add it. It's called a supplement. So that'll get covered. Public delays, I'm doing an addition on my house right now. I need 2 windows for my project to be done. I ordered the windows 2 months ago. They're coming in October. 2 Anderson 100 series windows, basement windows. Really? Certificate of satisfaction. Every co-owner that we work with, and board that we work with, we require a certificate of satisfaction signed before we get paid. So that's our guarantee. 1-year warranty. Not going to spend a ton of time on this. This is a whole other seminar, but Ready Action Plan. It's an online software program that Concraft provides to KS board members at no cost. It's a way to document all of your community, all your major mechanical shutoffs. We put all your blueprints in, we put all your contractors in, we put all your documents in, all your bylaws in. So in the event something does happen, we don't want anything to happen. But if it does, we're prepared. Right? We have the bylaws in our hand. We know who the owners are. We know where the shutoffs are. We know who your contractors are for mechanicals, for example. More information on that, you can talk to your management company. So this project is still going good. It's like I said, it's going to be almost a 2-year project. That's just the world we're living in today. So that's all I got. Is that good? We got a question. I do, yeah. Oh, cool. Does anybody have any questions regarding anything?
I'd like to know, should we have checked the fire?
Yeah, I mean, you should have like, I don't know, if I was I'm on a board of directors, but it's not a condo board, I'm on a different type of board, but I would imagine you have some type of, you should have like a committee that talks about preparedness and talks about safety checks, and yes, that should be something that actually the fire department should be doing, yes, once a year. You could call them and ask them to do it. Anybody else? Can I go to football practice?
Yes.
I really appreciate it, guys. Nice to meet everybody. Thank you.